I cannot hear you. The way I'm set up on my phone is that I cannot hear you. So whatever you say, I can't hear. I can only read you by turning my head. So if you have anything to say, you just tell me in the chat. Okay. Just give me a moment. Find some documents. Navadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Shamiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pachayane Nirvise Sasandivadi Paschatya Satani Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So we're gonna, the topic of Balaram is a bit esoteric. When we speak of Balaram as Nityananda, it's kind of clear. Nityananda is serving Lord Chaitanya. In Chaitanya Lila, everyone is a servant. There's no other rasa. Even though they may have other rasas, in Chaitanya Lila, everyone is serving. You want to see what it looks like outside? The storm is about 50 miles from us, and it's going to get more crazy as this class goes through. It'll get more crazy, but I'm in my house, so. Can you hear it at all? Whistling? No? Oh, okay. If you hear it, you think my roof is going to fall off or something. No, we're fine. We've been through these before. So Balaram's relationship is different than Nityananda's relationship because, as I said, in Chaitanya Lila, everyone has a reverential attitude towards Lord Chaitanya, but so Nityananda only has a reverential attitude. And in Chaitanya Lila, Nityananda is taking a subordinate position. And we know that Balaram is Krishna's older brother and also Nityananda, but Nityananda never took a position as older brother. He always took a subordinate position, always as servant. But Balaram, he takes both positions, both servant and guardian. So he has this Dasya Ras servant. Krishna, whatever you want, I will do. And he manifests Krishna's bed and his clothes and his flute and his pillow and shoes and a few other things. Yeah. And so he serves that way. He is the Sandini or Sat potency, which means that everything in the Leela he creates. So he's serving Krishna in many, many ways, but he also protects Krishna as elder brother. Dauji means, Dao means elder brother. And it is also in that capacity that he instructs Krishna. And so sometimes Balaram is referred to as Adi Guru, the original guru. It's like, why is he the original guru? Well, he's the guru of Krishna. So it doesn't get much more original than that. And of course, you could say Nandipani Muni was the guru of Krishna, but in a different sense. Balaram is the eternal guide of Krishna as elder brother. So he's got both relationships. And just to complicate it, I wouldn't say complicated, but because we know the spiritual nature is so vast and There's so much to discuss. Balaram also was married to Revati, but he also married other gopis. And then one questions, well, if Balaram is servant of Krishna, just facilitating Krishna, why did he have his own gopis? You want to? I'll get. I'm looking at the storm. Oh my God. One of the ways it's interesting. One of the ways Balaram serves Krishna in the conjugal rasa, although it's not his rasa with Krishna. It's friendship, Sakya. He's the head of Sakya. So he's the elder brother. And so, if I have an elder brother and I bring my girlfriend over, it would be quite awkward for him to come in the room when I invite her into my room, right? So he would facilitate my relationship with my girlfriend by just leaving us alone. And so that's what Balaram does. He leaves Radha and Krishna alone. So you'll never see Balaram in any leelas with Radha and Krishna. So he's serving the Madhurya Leela, the conjugal Leela, by leaving Krishna alone with. And he also serves, it's interesting, Krishna goes midday to Radhakund, and then he goes in the evening to meet Radharani. And so Balaram, he's taking care of, what do all the cowherd boys do? So he's taking care of him. And so they continue their leelas. So by doing that, he's serving Krishna in his Madhurya rasa. Isn't that interesting? So he is servant. He's in the mood of servant. He doesn't have a conjugal rasa. That sometimes it's said that his wife Jahnavi is also, Nityananda's wife is Jahnavi. She's also a gopi called Nanda Manjari, and then through her, he participates in conjugal ras. But I have to investigate that more. It's not clear in how that would happen, and it seems that that's not really his mood. But he did have gopis, and so the question comes up. This question came up last year in Alachua. If Balaram is not in conjugal ras, he's in Sakya ras, then what are the position of his gopis? And we also learn that from Chaitanya Charitamrita that if you are a follower of Balaram, that means you're in Sakya ras. Those in Sakya ras are followers of those who are friends. If you're, so like Balaram is kind of like not that you don't worship Krishna, but you also worship Balaram if you're in Sakya ras. So you have two worship, Krishna Balaram Mandir. In Raman Reti, where Krishna and Balaram would play. So those in Sakya ras, they're playing with Balaram, they're playing with Krishna. So there were some gopis, and these are eternally liberated gopis, that Balaram engaged in a so-called Ras Leela, but it wasn't, he married all of them. So it wasn't like Krishna with other men's wives. It wasn't anything like that. So somehow these women not somehow, but these women are eternally married to Balaram. So it wasn't anything like Rasa Leela. Like Krishna's married in Dwarka. And in Vrindavan, Krishna, all his girlfriends are married to someone else. So it's illicit sex in the full sense of it, if you did it in this world. Of course, there's no sex, no physical sex, but it's an illicit relationship. But Balaram's relationship with his gopis and the rasa dance that he did, it was just for their pleasure. It wasn't, he never wanted to get married, and Krishna told him to get married. So he did it. So he was just doing it for Krishna's pleasure. He wasn't doing it and to satisfy those women who saw him as their husband, but he wasn't doing it in Krishna's position. So does that make sense to you? He's not like Krishna's, it's a different position. And so when Krishna expands himself identically, Krishna has two expansions. One is identical and one is slightly different. And you may remember from Rasa Leela that Krishna expanded. And each gopi thought, oh, I have Krishna by myself. They were identical expansions. And similarly, good news if you're a cowherd boy, if you want to be one. Here's the good news for all you want to be cowherd boys. Krishna does the same thing with the cowherd boys. So like Krishna's putting some prasadam in the mouth of a cowherd boy, but he's doing it to multiple cowherd boys, but each cowherd boy thinks Krishna's just doing it with me, and there's multiple Krishnas. They're all the same. They're no different. That's called Prabhava Prakash. And Vaibhava Prakash it's Krishna, but slightly different. There's some difference. It's the different nature. So that's Balaram. Balaram is not an exact replica. But Prabhupada says Balaram is non-different from Krishna. So the only difference is that he's white. You could say another difference is, Krishna doesn't carry it, doesn't have a plow. Krishna has in the form of Vishnu, has the four symbols of Vishnu. Balaram is a plow, a horn, buffalo horn he plays. Buffalo horn is his main instrument. He may play a flute, I'm not sure. He was holding a flute at Mangalartik today. So cowherd boys play flutes. But, the main instrument of Krishna is the flute, and Balaram is buffalo horn. So these are minor differences, but he doesn't have a relationship with Radha, as we said. He doesn't have a relationship with unmarried women. His relationship was married, like, in Dwarka, like Krishna and Dwarka, like that. So he is different in that sense, and he has a different mood. But at the same time, he's Krishna. So, and as you know, or you should know, or you will know, that Krishna takes forms to reciprocate with his devotees. So a devotee wants a particular relationship. Krishna is taking that form to have that relationship. So, as we said, Balaram is like the king of the cowherd boys. So they have a special relationship with Balaram. So, if you heard the class I gave on Monday morning in New York, how many of you heard it? You raise your hand. Any of you heard it? One. Only one. So I mentioned something which is quite interesting about the Maha Mantra and Rama in the Maha Mantra. And so naturally, at some point in your devotional career, you will learn, or you will, if you haven't learned, you would wonder, well, who is this Rama in the Maha Mantra? Is it the Rama of Sita? And is Hari Rama Sita Ram? Is it the Rama of Balaram? Is it Revati Rama? Or, and you may not know this, there's Radha Raman, which means the lover or the one who gives pleasure to Radha. I mean, I think you could also translate it, Radha gives pleasure. But it's a name of Krishna who gives pleasure to Radha. And so, apparently Prabhupada said, when he was asked these questions, is he Rama? Is he Balaram? Is he Radharaman? And Prabhupada's answer was yes. Because the spiritual world is not limited. And so in chanting the Maha Mantra, we first learn to hear and pray, and maybe we're not so focused on the tattva. But as we progress, then our inclination is probably not for Sita Ram, because we're being directed towards Radha and Krishna. So then we would see that as Krishna with Radha, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, that Ram, Radha Raman. Or Perhaps if we're a cowherd boy, we might think Balaram. And you might say, well, I don't know who I am. Yeah, you probably don't yet. Maybe some do, but most don't. You may have an inclination a certain way. It's okay. Prabhupada never got split hairs on this. But I wanted to present another understanding of Maha Mantra that I find interesting also, which is less complicated per se, easy to understand. So the Maha Mantra, Radha and if you take it as Radha, Krishna, and Balaram, and we can take it that way because that's one aspect, it represents Sat Chit Ananda. Because the Hladini potency is Radharani, she manifests the Hladini potency. And the Sambit potency, that is Krishna. Sambit means knowledge, Hladini means pleasure. And Sandini means existence. As we're saying, Balaram creates everything. Everything in the spiritual existence, everything in material existence ultimately is coming from Balaram, except Radharani. Expansions of Radha become gopis, and everything else is Balaram. He creates living entities as his expansion is Mahavishnu, and he creates all the planets, and he's like really the creator. So he's a manifestation of this, what is called the existence potency. From the material world perspective, we call it Satchidananda, the nature of the soul. From the the realm of the spiritual world, we call it Sanditi, Sambit, Hladini. Or to put it all together, we call it Swarup Shakti. That means Swarup means Krishna's own form, and Shakti means his energy. So his own personal energy, the spiritual. I mean, everything's his energy, but it's like his internal, say internal energy, right? Sometimes we say internal, external. Swarup means one's own, say internal. So, yeah. So the Maha Mantra means Samvit Sandini Hladini. The whole spiritual world is there in the Maha Mantra. So, we were mentioning how Balaram is the Adi Guru. Sometimes he's called Akhanda. Akhanda means complete, Adi Guru. And of course, we also understand Nityananda is the Adi Guru, or the personification of Guru. And there's two reasons. What does Guru personify? Well, Samsaradava Nadalita Loka. He personifies the mercy. He gets the mercy of Krishna, and he gives it to his disciples. He's getting the mercy from his Guru, giving it to his disciples. Balaram is manifesting mercy in the form of Bala, spiritual strength. He personifies spiritual strength. Balaram can also mean by spiritual strength you become Rama, you become happy, pleased, you become pleased. Balabhadra, you become auspicious. With spiritual strength, you become auspicious. Baladeva, with spiritual strength, you become godly. So the Guru is one who gives you spiritual strength. Balaram personifies spiritual strength. Often when we feel weak, we pray to our Guru, please give me strength. I don't have the Gurudev, Kripa Bindu Diya. Give me a drop of mercy. Kuru Dasi, I'm your servant. If I get a drop of your mercy, then everything is good. Everything I need comes from your mercy. So Balaram is like the source of all that mercy, and then all the gurus following in his line, Gaudiya Vaishnava gurus, are getting that mercy from him. Doesn't mean that we can't pray to Balaram or Nityananda, but we're defining what it means to be guru. Of course, Nityananda exhibited compassion of the utmost in trying to save Jagai Madhai, so he personifies the Guru as compassion. And another aspect of Balaram is considered the pinnacle of service to Krishna, because he never takes the position of enjoyer, like we said. Even with those gopis, he was told to marry them. He didn't really want to marry. He didn't have an inclination, because his inclination is in Sakyarasa, which is just to be Krishna's friend. So he wasn't interested in Madhurya, and that Madhurya, and his, even though he has these gopis, his relationship with Krishna is not affected by that. It's always friendship. And as we said, it oscillates between reverential friendship, taking a junior position, and parental friendship, guiding and taking care of him. Krishna, when they go out, Mother Yashoda makes sure, Balaram, you take care of Krishna. So he's like the supreme servant of Krishna. He's always, he is the persona, yeah. Rupa Goswami, I believe it was Rupa Goswami said, he's the personification of the serving ego. Like, we're the personification of the enjoying ego, pretty much. We're trying to get purified of that, but sometimes we'd rather enjoy for ourselves than serve. So Balaram doesn't have any independent mentality of enjoyer, even in the transcendental sense. He's the personification of the serving ego. So Guru is Acharya, so he sets the example that he, as we said, not only is he serving, but he's becoming the paraphernalia which Krishna uses. So he's serving in that part. The Brahman thread also. I missed a few. The flute, the bed pillow, the shoes. What else? Who knows what else? And you can put it in chat. I have to bend my head for chat. When we do the questions, though, I'm going to have to turn my camera around. Otherwise, I'll be reading like that. Jewelry. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Jewelry, ornaments. Yeah. Correct. So, Radharani is also a manifestation of the Guru's mercy. Prabhupada says in Madhurya Ras, Radharani, and Sakya Ras, there's Balaram. So, there's some other things we can discuss about Balaram. I think it's important, as you probably notice, on the appearance days of Krishna, Balaram, Rama, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there's a special atmosphere in the air, and you feel a bit like you do when you're in the Dham. It's like the mercy is kind of like flowing. Poor Priya is happy I'm speaking slow. I kind of under the weather, so I'm speaking. You notice I'm speaking slowly? I look very relaxed, right? It's good, easy for translation, right? I'm not getting too excited. If I get excited, then they can't keep up. So you have this verse, Nayam Atma Bala Hinena Labhya. You cannot become self-realized without Bala, spiritual strength. Bala Hinena Labhya. Without spiritual strength, you can't become self-realized. There was a guru in Bengal, still famous at the time of Bhakti Siddhanta, but due to the preaching of Gaudiya Math, that mission, called the Ramakrishna mission, it was not going well. The Gaudiya Math became very, very powerful, and Ramakrishna mission was missing something. They were impersonalist and some other problems, and so. But Ramakrishna Paramahansa, the founder, he was extremely popular. He is today and was then. And what was the point I was making? I completely forgot. Why am I talking about the Ramakrishna mission? What was I saying before? I completely forgot. I'm a little bit tired. Or I'm going to move my cameras so I don't. Yeah. what was the point I was making? Balaram, oh yeah, about the strength, excuse me. Yeah. Strength. Okay, yeah. Okay. So so this Ramakrishna mission, I was in India like 30 years ago or so, and I was in a home and I saw a poster and it had this verse, Nayam Atma, without Atma, Nayam Atma, you cannot become self-realized Bala without strength, Balahinena, without achieving strength. And it had a picture of barbells, weights. So the connotation was you need to be physically strong to become Krishna conscious. But the Prabhupada used to point that out. He said, no, it's not referring to material strength. I mean, helps to be healthy, right? But that's not the foundational principle of bhakti. Physical health is not. Physical health can, lack of it can be an impediment, and having health can certainly be beneficial. It is beneficial, but it's not the cause of bhakti. It's not the essential foundation. So, so Balaram is that strength, and so we translate this, without the mercy of Balaram, you can't be Krishna conscious. And so, as I said, because Bala means strength, he manifests, he personifies spiritual strength. And so I think it's important and reassuring for us to understand that whatever obstacle we face, it's not too big for Balaram. He's very strong. Balaram's effort. Balaram, Krishna killed some demons, right? We know. But Balaram also had his I don't want to say his demons, but you know what I mean. He had the ones he killed, his demons, and Krishna had his demons. So Balaram obviously is strong, of course. And sometimes problems seem insurmountable. Like, I just can't deal with this. This is too much. And we should know that we can take shelter of Balaram. We can pray to Balaram for strength to help us, especially today, and that he will help us. That's what in one sense, Balaram, in his manifestation on this planet, exists to help us. That's why he's here. He's here for us. So I think especially today, we should tap into this mercy. And I would say, or a way of saying this is, you can experiment today with Balaram's mercy. See if it works. Not see if it works, see how it works for you. So how do you tap into mercy? Of course, you pray for it. You can do some service. I did some service this morning at Mangalarti. I cleaned the temple. Although Radha Priya was there, she's like, I didn't see you clean the temple. Well, some water spilled on the floor and I accidentally stepped on it and my socks were wet. So everywhere I went, I was cleaning the floor. So Balaram tricked me into doing some service. Prahlad Maharaj, if you know the story, in his previous life, he had a temple and he had a fight with his girlfriend. And I believe it was Kadasi, and he was so agitated, he stayed up all night. He didn't sleep. I think he finally, I think he stayed up all night fasting in the temple. Something like that. And so he got mercy for that. So I got mercy for unknowingly, washing the temple floor, at least in some places. So to render service to Lord Balaram, to pray for mercy. And one way we render service, which I think is what I always do on appearance days, disappearance days, I like to spend time studying about that particular incarnation or aspect or acharya. Because it's generally we take off that day for working, and today in Florida, everything is closed. So it's Balaram's mercy. Did you know that? all the schools are closed, every business is closed. You have to stay put in your house, and if you live in a mobile home, you have to even leave that. But so for us here in Alachua, like we have more time today. Not like we're going to go out and do a lot. But there are brave devotees at the temple. They might get caught and not be able to leave, but it's another thing. But I find it's a great day to study. You want to, if you want to learn more about Balaram, you can read Bhagavatam. There's a lot about him. Not only just Leelas, but there's some tattva. We can discuss some more tattva. So, serving Balaram, of course, the highest service, Prabhupada has always told us, highest service is to help somebody become Krishna conscious. But I'm sure there's so many services you can do. But I think it's important for us as helpless living entities who are trying to do something impossible for a conditioned soul, which is to love Krishna, to access Balaram's mercy. Now, the only problem to accessing that mercy, whether it's Balaram's mercy or anyone's mercy, the only real problem would be that we are afraid of getting that mercy, although that sounds strange. But sometimes we're afraid of getting mercy because mercy would mean that I would progress in Krishna consciousness. So if I'm afraid of progressing, then maybe you know what I'm talking about, don't you? But like, I'm supposed to pray for mercy, but if I get mercy, then I'll come to a level of bhakti which I can't handle, or I'll surrender too much, or I don't know if I'm ready to surrender. Then what do we do? If you're in that position, or maybe you have an attachment and you say, I know I should pray to Balaram to remove this attachment, but I'm attached. So how can I pray for him to remove something that I don't want to let go of, even though I know I should let go of? That's what I'm referring to. I'm sure you've all experienced that. And so, at least if you're caught in that situation, you ever been caught in that situation where you're praying for something, but you're not really praying for it? You're praying because you should, but you don't. You're like, almost like, I know I should, Krishna, please remove this attachment. So it's like you're formally praying, and maybe in the back of your mind, say, could you make it easy and could you do it slowly? Could you wait till next week? Like that kind of thing, You ever done that? Like, okay, doctor, I know I need a shot. Can you know how to do it so it doesn't hurt? Because I'm like, I can't stand pain, something like that. So then we pray, Krishna, help me desire, or Balaram, help me desire the things that I should pray for. Help me desire to give up the things that I don't want to give up. So we can pray that way. So it's not, we should always pray. It's best to pray according to what's real for us. Because if you pray for what's not real for you, it doesn't mean anything. And like I'm saying, in the back of your mind, you might be thinking, Krishna, I know you heard that prayer, but I hope you don't answer it because, probably would be difficult. We don't want to do that. So today we can take advantage of the mercy of Lord Balaram by asking for strength. And the strength may be just the strength to ask, to be able to ask for the right thing, to be able to desire to ask for the right thing, to be able to desire to give up those things which I should give up. Prabhupada says in the Bhagavatam that it's very interesting because I talk about this all the time. I talk so much about knowing and how knowing is not enough, because we know so many things, but we don't really want to apply them. So it's not like everything we learn we want to apply, right? So Prabhupada said, Balaram gives you the strength to put into practice what you learn. So Krishna gives the knowledge, do this, don't do that. And Balaram gives the strength to be able to apply that knowledge. So that's beautiful, isn't it? So you can pray to Balaram. So, I know what to do, but I don't always do it. I'm praying to you to give me the strength to be able to do this. You know the way material attachment works. It's hard to let go of something if we see that object as enjoyable, even though the ramifications of enjoying that may be disastrous. So sometimes we need help. Well, we always need help, but sometimes we need help in specific areas. So today's a good day to isolate those areas and say, Balaram, blast my heart out with an atomic bomb, clean it up. The nature of material attachment, I have to say this because I think, when you read our books, then you conclude that, and rightly so, you conclude that as I progress, Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita, Vairagyam comes, Janaitu Janyasa Vairagyam Jnanamscha. Knowledge and renunciation come as a byproduct. We know that. But that could backfire because we may not be striving hard enough to let go of things which are getting in the way. Thinking, well, I just be Krishna conscious, and it's like, okay, everything's just going to go. Well, I have some bad news for you. Well, let's backtrack a little bit. When you read Prabhupada's books, you'll read things like, you just be Krishna conscious and ABC will happen. And then you've been around for years, and maybe A happened 50%, B happened 40%, C happened 30%, and D hasn't happened more than 2%. And you start to worry. And the reason is our execution, our past samskars, our past conditioning, and our execution of devotional service, it's lacking. And it's just the nature of reality. For most of it's lacking. You all know that. You've been doing Krishna consciousness for a number of years. There's things within you that need work. Even though Krishna consciousness has helped tremendously, some of those things are still pretty strong, right? Whatever they are, they're still there. So, therefore, if you study Prabhupada's books, even though you'll see that as you become Krishna conscious, you become more detached, you'll also see the other side is like, well, you have to try to pull those attachments also. It's not like sit back and I'll just chant and they'll go. If our chanting was extremely pure and our general consciousness was extremely pure, then we could say, yeah, that would probably happen. But at the same time, you have this concept, which you've all heard, called pulling the weeds, because it's a chapter. There's a chapter in Chaitanya Charitamrita where Prabhupada talks about it. It's the Gundicha Marjana, when they're cleaning the temple. And cleaning the temple is compared to, all the dirt is compared to pulling weeds out of your heart. So on one hand, you have this, just be Krishna conscious and everything will come. On the other hand, you have these disciplines, the practices, where you have to do this and this and this, so everything will come on the other side. And so part of the this and this and this is pulling those weeds or working on our own attachments, because I think you all realize that attachments are very deeply rooted. Have you noticed that? It's in the Bhagavatam also. The word is used, deeply rooted attachments, to our families, very deeply rooted, isn't it? Sometimes you don't know how deeply rooted your attachment is until a family member is in difficulty or becomes very ill or dies. And so many things were, deeply rooted to our false identities and prestige and so forth. And so we really have to be constantly working on this. And if we're not, it's very easy for those attachments to get stronger if we're not careful. Have you ever had that experience? Sometimes you feel detached and sometimes you don't. Have you had that experience? Like, often I was talking about this the other day in class in New York, how it's an interesting phenomenon. It's kind of like you've been very sick, maybe you had an operation, but you're feeling better. And so you want to go out and do what you used to do, used to run 5 miles or whatever you used to do, play tennis, and, do all your exercises. And you feel like you can do it, and then you start to do it and you realize you can't. You just had an operation. So sometimes in Krishna consciousness, we are in a very, very good situation. We're feeling very inspired, very detached. But later on, no, these attachments kind of rise because maybe our sadhana was weak or for whatever reason. You ever had that experience? Like I thought that pain in my knee was gone, and then I ran and it's back. And I thought I could run because I thought I cured it like that. Maybe that's not the best analogy, but you understand. Like sometimes you think you've conquered something, but because it's deeply rooted, it just wasn't surfacing as much as it might have in the past, and it can resurface again. So it's pretty much a constant process, a daily process. Today, after Mangalartik, they're doing a fire set. Well, they did it, a fire yagya, and they had a name for it, which I'd never heard before. And then they said, at this yagya, all the Brahmins will retake their vows. I don't know why you had to be a Brahmin to retake your vows. And after he said it, I thought to myself, I didn't say anything, but I thought to myself, I said, no, you have to take your vows every day, not once a year. That's not good. So because of these attachments, you can't sit back and think, okay, I've been to Vrindavan, everything's good. So horrible. Everything's fine. No, I've got to work on it all the time, right? You can't, until you have very high, at least ruchi, until we have a very strong taste. These things are there. So it would be really good if today we learn how to take shelter of the strength that Balaram can give us so that we could do that every day, either in the form of Balaram or the form of Nityananda or the form of our Guru or all three, or taking shelter of Prabhupada, of course. That principle, the Guru Tattva principle of I'm weak, by their mercy, they can help me overcome my weaknesses. And learn how to pray to Balaram and learn how to pray. Pray, the best way to pray is like, just do what you have to do. If you're bold enough, that's the best way to pray. Balaram, do what you have to do. Like, we don't always want to pray that way because we're afraid, well, what's he going to do? Make me crash my car, end up in the hospital to realize I'm not the body? I don't know. Want to pray like that. Do you ever feel that way? I'm not like, I don't want to just pray, do what you want to do, because I think, well, Krishna, you might like take advantage of that prayer. But actually that's what we need to pray, because if we have a disease in the heart, then we shouldn't so much care about how painful the operation is. We should more care about getting rid of it, shouldn't we? Krishna has anesthesia, he can make it less painful. But so if we can learn how to pray willingly to the point of say, Krishna, I have this attachment and I want to let it go, and I know I should let it go, but I'm so attached. You do whatever you have to do to break it. That should be our attitude. But then we give Balaram, it's like signing what would you call it? Signing, not an agreement. You're like signing, it's not like you're giving someone, yeah, in a sense, you're signing over the rights to Balaram, to Guru, that, okay, I'm signing over, you can do whatever you have to do. Yeah, maybe like, you're signing an agreement with the doctor. If there's a complication during the surgery, then I will let you decide, whatever you decide to do, just do it. Some kind of agreement. What do they call that? I can't remember the name for it. Isn't there? Must be a name for it. Anyway, there is, but consent, yeah. Consent. So it's something like that. Make a sensual relationship with Balaram, like whatever you need, just do it. Because my point is that these attachments that we have that on our own are difficult to overcome, they could stick around for decades. And because we need help, we need to ask Balaram. It's like, can you just kind of smash it? Like, I really don't want it. We want to be brave enough and bold enough to let them go. I really don't want it. And maybe you have 10 attachments, so you can only ask him to let go of 5. But at least ask him to do whatever he has to do to help you let go of those. It's a catch-22, isn't it? Because if you have attachment, that means you don't want to let it go because you're attached to it, right? It's a paradox, isn't it? Like, I want this, I like it, why would I pray to let it go? Well, because you realize maybe it's not so good for you. Or you can pray, Krishna, and I have this attachment and I know I have to engage it, so please help me engage it in a way that will be pleasing to you and will not entangle me. That's there also, because some it's good I make this point, because some attachments, if we try to give them up, they just come back because they're so inherent within our nature. And we need, I don't want to say confront them, because you don't really have to confront them as much as acknowledge the depth of that attachment and acknowledge that, and especially I'm talking about attachments that can be used in Krishna service. So you can use them, so that's good. So if I see that, someone's attached to making money, then I think, please purify me of this attachment. I just want to be a Brahmin. And because there's such a Vaishya at heart, then they would pray, Krishna, please protect me from using this money for sense gratification. And please guide me in the best way to use this money and so forth. And please help me make this money honestly, or please help me remain in sattva guna as I do business, and so forth. Or please help me not to mistreat my employees, whatever. So I realize that it's my nature, and that attachment is not necessarily bad. It can be utilized. So an attachment which potentially could be bad can be utilized in service, but some attachments, they're just bad. They can't be used, or they can't be used like in the form that we want to enjoy them. They can't really be used that well, or not the way we want to use them. Well, those attachments, we would pray to Krishna, just, take them, do what you have to do to take them. And with the other attachments, help me. I mentioned several times how I think one of my deepest attachments is to music, like so much so that for me, it's almost like eating, it's like if you don't eat after, we can miss a meal here or there, but you get to the point where you're like, you really have to eat because you can't function. Or you start getting depressed, not just physiological. I'm talking about the physiological effects, the psychological effects. You ever have that? Like start going crazy because you don't get food? I mean, it may be physiological also. But let's just say, for the sake of the discussion, the psychological aspect. So I never realized how important music was for me until I moved to Alachua, because Alachua had like had 80% of the greatest kirtaniyas in the ISKCON universe in one place. So it was like they didn't need me to do kirtan. Whereas normally when I travel, they only have a few, if any, devotees who are good at kirtan. So naturally I get to do it. And so it was only after being here for a while and then traveling that I realized how much I need to do kirtan. It was like, yeah, it was missing in me, and I could feel the difference. Like, oh, that part of me was missing. Now I feel complete. I'm normal. I ate. You know how you feel after you eat. It's like everything's good. It was a pretty clear experience I had. But I have a challenge in that because I like music so much, I could misuse it. I have an excuse to misuse it now because I do guided meditations, and I have an excuse. I can create the music for the guided meditation because, you know, I mean, I can just get music online, royalty-free music, you know, but I could create it also. And I like to do it, and I like to write songs and so forth, but it could potentially get in the way of my other services. But if I totally neglect it, it's like that part of me is getting subdued. So it has to be utilized. So I always pray to Krishna, you know, that I utilize it properly in your service. I don't misutilize it. Just, you know, I'm careful about it as far as possible. So I think, you know, that's a good example. Music for me might be something else for you that is really important. Some things in Krishna consciousness are no-brainers. Like if you like to teach, well, there's no transition. If you like to sing, there's no transition because you can just sing kirtan, you can just give classes. If you like to manage, there's like 800 temples that need a temple president, you know. So some things are that you don't really have to transition in. If you like to act, every Sunday feast that I was at when I was a young devotee had a play. That was just part of it, there'd be a play. So, you know, some things are like, they're just like direct. Easy to engage. You like to sew, great. So deity clothes. You're a ritualistic, mystical person. Oh, you've got deities. You could mystical out there, you know, like very deeply, you know, with 100 different rituals you could do, you know, if that's what you like. So some things are easier to engage. Other things may be more challenging, especially if we're very attached to them and we can misuse them. So, you know, these are things you can contemplate in your prayers to Lord Balaram today. Okay. I have some quotes that I could read. I believe they're from Prabhupada's books. Just to hear something from Prabhupada about Balaram. Oops. I have to find it. I thought I had it, but I didn't. Let's see. I got so many documents. There's so much to say. Yeah. Okay. Let's read a few things. And we have like 7 minutes before we take questions. Baladeva. We still have internet. We don't have electricity, actually. I'm looking at the battery on my phone. I have to do another program after I charged my power bank. I can always go in the car and turn it on and charge my phone. As long as the car doesn't blow over. Probably won't, I don't think. Okay. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the fountainhead of all incarnations. Lord Balaram is his second body. They are both one and the same identity. They differ only in form. Balaram is the first bodily expansion of Krishna, and he assists in Lord Krishna's transcendental pastimes. He is the source of the entire spiritual world and is the Adi Guru, the original spiritual master. He assumes 5 other forms to serve Lord Krishna. He himself helps in the pastimes of Lord Krishna, and he does the work of creation in 4 other forms called Chaturvyuha. And you know, I was saying with Radha and Krishna, he's not there, but with Lakshmi and Narayan, he is as Seshanaga, because Lakshmi and Narayan is laying on Seshanaga, so Balaram's there. But according to rasa, it's okay. He can serve that rasa. So Chaturvyuha Sankarsha Pradyumna Aniruddha and Pradyumna. Sankarshan Aniruddha. Pradyumna and why am I missing one? Who am I missing? Aniruddha, Pradyumna, Sankarshan, and why am I forgetting? Who am I forgetting? Vasudeva, that's what I thought. I must be really tired. So he expands, and then they expand again, and then expands into Mahavishnu, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, Kshirodakshaya Vishnu. So Balaram's right there, making it all happen. Yeah, it was right here. I just had to read. Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. He executes the orders of Lord Krishna in the work of creation and in the form of Lord Sesha. He serves Sri Krishna in various ways. In all the forms, he tastes the transcendental bliss of serving Krishna. No one can approach Krishna without first getting the mercy of Baladeva. I'm thinking of something interesting you may or may not know. You know how Krishna appeared in Mathura and how Balaram appeared in the womb of Devaki. He was preparing, like when we wake up the deities in the morning, we wash the altar. We're always washing it, always cleaning it. So Balaram's in the womb. So Krishna's coming, you have to make preparations, make sure everything's good. I haven't read a description of actually how he was preparing it, but this is his rasa. You could say even if he didn't have to, he would do it. And then he was transferred to the womb of Rohini. And Krishna then appeared in the womb of Devaki. But Krishna also appeared in the womb of Yashoda. So the form of Krishna that appears in Mathura is different than the form that appears in Vrindavan. So I think most of you know this, but maybe you don't, that Krishna actually was not transferred to the womb of Yashoda. He took birth in the womb of Yashoda. And that form that appeared in Mathura was Vasudeva, and that merged when Vasudeva. When Vasudeva brought Vasudeva, that form of Vasudeva merged in the form of Krishna. So Rohini is the mother of Balaram. He was transferred. And Rohini is an eternal Brajvasi, even if she was in Mathura. She's considered an eternal Brajvasi. So Balaram, in his original form, is Rohini. In his expansion, is in the womb of Devaki. So just like Krishna, it's the same thing. So here, the last sentence that we've discussed, I'll just read this again. No one can approach Krishna without first getting the mercy of Baladeva. So we'll read about the descent. I think I just explained everything we're going to read, but let's read. Whenever Krishna appears in the material world, he is accompanied by his associates and paraphernalia. 5,000 years ago, when Krishna descended into the material world, he was first preceded by Balaram. Only after Balaram gives his mercy did Krishna descend. Oh, something, I don't know if you've heard this, is very interesting. When Balaram was born, he was like completely oblivious of everything around him. But when he would sit on Mother Yashoda's lap, which means he was sitting with his brother in her womb, because Krishna was in, sitting on, Jasoda Devaki. And maybe it was Jasoda. Yeah, it was Jasoda. Krishna's in her womb. It was only when he would sit on her lap and then he would be next to Krishna that he would become normal again. And then when he would be removed from the lap, he would just like be avadu, just kind of like he couldn't function. And so that's what he was like. He's, I believe, 8 days older, right? He's 8 days older. So for those 8 days, waiting for Krishna to be born, then he was like that. But then when Krishna was born, that problem went away. He didn't have it anymore. Have you ever heard that before? Interesting. Only after Baladeva gave his mercy did Krishna descend. Such is the intimate relationship between Krishna and Balaram. Older brothers, like you can come now. When Baladeva appeared as the 7th child in the womb of Devaki, she could understand that this was a divine child, and this made her all the more concerned about his safety. Even Kamsa could sense his potency, and he became fearful, thinking he may have been tricked by the prophecy that he will be slain only by the 8th child of Devaki. At this time, Krishna instructed Yogamaya, his internal potency, to transfer the unborn child from the womb of Devaki to that of Rohini, one of the other wives of Vasudeva, who was hiding from Kamsa in the house of Nanda Maharaja in Gokul. About Purnamasi. Purnamasi means she's bright like the moon. Do you know that? Moon's effulgent like the moon. And she wears white, but there's a description, I'm not sure if it's Jiva Goswami, that she wears saffron. The one Acharya described her as wearing white, and one Acharya described her as wearing saffron. Controversy. In the spiritual world, there's controversy. Watch it. Now, there are 5 chapters in the Bhagavatam on Krishna's Rasa Leela. Did you know that? 5 chapters dedicated to Rasa Leela. Is that amazing? There are 4 verses. There are 4 verses dedicated to Balaram's Rasa Leela, Rasa dance, so to speak. But 2 of those verses are not found in every Bhagavatam. Whoa. Whoa. Things are getting very controversial now. Because 2 of those verses, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said that all our great acharyas did not comment on those 2 verses, which he believes indicates that those verses were put in, that they don't actually belong there. Whoa. You like controversy? You join the right movement. You're going to have controversy the rest of your life. We thought it was going to be social controversy or political. No, it's philosophical also. And when they asked Prabhupada about it, he just shrugged it off, like, what's the problem? Like, for us, it's a problem, right? One acharya said this, another acharya said that, and we stay up all night thinking about it, and we lose our faith, and we think maybe I should, I don't know if I should be a devotee, find another movement, have an existential crisis, go see our therapist. We don't know what to do. And Prabhupada's like, yeah, what's the problem? They can disagree. Yeah. Spiritual world's big enough for 2 opinions. It's a 4-dimensional. It's not in 3, so you can big enough for more than 2. Yeah. Gargamuni, the venerable Kul Guru, family priest of the Yadu dynasty, revealed to Rohini, that the child she was carrying was indeed that of her husband, Vasudeva. At the time of the name giving, but she is in Vrindavan, so he's transferred to Vrindavan. He transferred in his original form. Referring to the immense strength of the child, Garga Muni predicted that he will also be known as Balaram. Bala means strength, since he was forcibly attracted from the womb of Devaki to that of Rohini. He was also called Sankarshan. Sankarshan means to attract. But he attracts Krishna also. There are other meanings of Sankarshan, not just attracted to the womb of Devaki, but attracting Krishna. As the son of Rohini, he was known as Rohini Nandana, and as the elder brother of Krishna, he was known as Dauji. So it's 10:35. I think you have questions. I'm going to see if there are any questions. Sometimes the most easy things are the hardest to establish. I think you're saying every day, to do them every day. Yeah. Doesn't have to be difficult to be hard. Doesn't have to be physically difficult. My daughter told me something. She's taking a class. And she told me something really good. Would you like to hear it? Kind of addresses this point. So the teacher is talking about a lot of things we talked in the self-care workshop. But he was talking about balance. And, when you're out of balance, you usually neglect something to achieve success. And one thing, you neglect something else that's important. Not that you can't neglect something. Some things are good to neglect because they're not good for you, but you neglect something that you should be doing. A relationship, your health, your work, your sadhana, your service, something gets neglected. And he was saying, I really like this. He was saying, think of all the aspects of your life like balls. So let's take a tennis ball. To touch those, but at least touch the ball every day. Right? Touch it. What all your balls are. You don't have to. Because balance. Like perfect balance is not going to happen. We only sleep 2 hours. That's not. What is that balanced? Well, I work 8 hours, so I work 8 hours and I sleep 2, and I sleep. No, I work 8 hours. I sleep. Oh, let's say you work. Well, it's a better example. Let's say you work 12 hours because you're working for Google or something. Does that mean I should sleep 12 hours to be balanced? No, not necessarily. So everything is not going to be equal in terms of time or importance or energy, but touch the ball every day. And then it's a side point as a bonus point, which has nothing to do with what we're talking about. But I thought it was so beautiful because I talk about this in the self-care course. This is a teacher at a university. He's kind of special. He teaches from a book he wrote, so he's kind of well known. Not just an ordinary teacher. He said that if you don't love yourself, then you have a hole in the bottom of your heart so that all the love people give you just drips right out that hole. You can't contain it. Isn't that a nice analogy? You can't contain other people's love if you don't love yourself. And I've said at least 50 times in the last month, you can't contain Krishna's love if you don't love yourself, because it'll drip out. And so he was confirming it. Whether it's Krishna's love or whoever's love it is, it'll drip out. So that was beautiful. Okay, back to questions. I keep hitting the wrong button. I don't want to miss anyone's questions. I'm quite good at doing that. Should we fast on Balaram's birthday? A half day. Unless you're going to collapse if you fast, then you can have fruit and milk. That's also fasting. Question from Facebook. My obeisances. Where's the problem? How to pray to Balaram to be able to go through the difficult moments, such as an anxiety attack due to the accumulation of masses that generate stress. May I ask Balaram to give me strength? Yeah. Yeah. You want to hear something? You can pray to Krishna for anything. The point of prayer is that you're praying for help with something that is overwhelming or some weakness, something that you can't deal with or something that you can't achieve or something you can't let go of. And so you're praying for mercy to deal with that. And you say, this is like, it's beyond me. But there's a problem. I've probably talked about this before. That sometimes you've already been given the answer. Like, I'm going through a difficulty, I need mercy. That's understood. We pray, Krishna, help me. But we also have to think, is there an answer in Prabhupada's books to this? Am I allowing my anxiety to not enable me to take advantage of the very instructions in Prabhupada's books that could relieve the anxiety? So I think, both things, not just one. Whatever stress or anxiety we have, it's answered in Prabhupada's books. But obviously, sometimes we become a bit overwhelmed. That's understandable. But at least understand that answer is there in his books. And you can pray for the sobriety to be able to digest the answer. And prayer, the general idea of prayer is that everything is good to pray for if it helps you get closer to Krishna. Then you say, well, what about praying for my health? If the it depends on the devotee. Prabhupada didn't. But he let his devotees pray. Something really interesting. It's very, very interesting. And I'm going to puzzle you a little bit because I haven't contemplated this deeply. But there's a story in which a dear devotee of Prabhupada, he was not initiated by Prabhupada, but he was helping in the construction of the Juhu temple. And he became deathly ill. And Prabhupada was asking, Prabhupada didn't know he was ill. And he didn't see him. He said, where is Mr. Seti? And he said, oh, he's ill, he's dying. Prabhupada went to see him, I believe, in the hospital. And he said, Prabhupada, I can't continue my service, I'm leaving my body. And Prabhupada put his hand on his head and said, you'll be fine, don't worry. Somebody said he had 4th-stage cancer. I can't confirm that. But as far as the story's been told by many devotees, that he was critically ill. And Prabhupada said, you'll be fine, don't worry. And he was. Apparently the next day he was better, back to normal. So when I heard that story, I was thinking, well, this is really interesting because theoretically speaking, if that story is true, we have no reason to believe it's not. If it's true, it means Prabhupada could have done that for himself, but he didn't. And he let his disciples pray for him. And he was, and I think the reason Prabhupada didn't do it for himself is he wanted to know what Krishna's will is. And that's why, this is interesting. That's why when we asked Prabhupada, can we pray for your health? Prabhupada said, you can, but you have to say, Krishna, if you so desire. So it's like Prabhupada didn't want to exert his will if he wasn't sure it was Krishna's will. Isn't that interesting? So, yeah. But of course, you could say, well, I'm not Prabhupada. So yeah, you have to pray according to your realization. You just have, you're having a really difficult time dealing with something that like Prabhupada wouldn't have difficulty dealing with. So you can't imitate. You have to. But at least we understand the principle. Krishna, if you cure me, I could do more service, but that's your design. If you relieve this anxiety, I can do more service. And, I would also say, what's causing the anxiety? Krishna, help me remove the causes of the anxiety. Yeah. Sometimes I'm attached to do some anartha because I take it as the source of my enjoyment. This could be because of my conditioning samskars. Yes, exactly. If it's just for my personal enjoyment and has nothing to do with Krishna, that needs to be given up somehow or other. Or as I said, you have to figure out how that can be used in Krishna's service. Otherwise, we want to be Krishna conscious, so why, if we're trying to take a bath, well, would we throw dirt on ourselves? And so we have to look at it like that. I'm making all this effort to be Krishna conscious, and then I throw dirt on myself. I'm making this effort I'm cleaning my room, and when I finish cleaning my room, I take a little dirt and throw it on the floor. It doesn't make sense. If you think of it that way, it's maybe easier to give it up. Okay. We have a story here of Balaram's birth. Yeah. How do we tell if an attachment is something we should give up right away or if we should engage it in service? If it's, I think intuitively, you have to connect with your intuition, and you can also discuss with seniors. It's easier to tell when you've been a devotee longer because it's kind of remained with you the whole time, and maybe you've neglected it and you realize that it's so strongly there within you that you have to engage it, which is not bad. Maybe calling it attachment in every case is not right, because sometimes it's just nature. It's not really an attachment. Like, okay, I have a nature to do music. Could you say I'm attached to it? Well, if I every day, play music that has nothing to do with Krishna, then I would say we would have to call that an attachment, and it's unhealthy. Unless I'm listening because I want to compose something and I'm listening to other composers, I'm thinking, I got to get ideas or something, or I write a song, listening to an expert songwriter. But if I'm just listening for my enjoyment, that becomes a problem. So, I would say to this question, probably in most cases, the answer is you should engage it. And if it's a harmful attachment, it often borderlines on, it's like really difficult to engage. How do I engage this thing? That probably means if you're having a really hard time figuring out how to engage it, like, maybe practically you're finding difficulty engaging it, that's different. But if you're just having difficulty imagining how it would be engaged, that's probably unhealthy. But if it's kind of obvious and you can engage it in a healthy way, why not? It would be bad in many cases not to. And if you don't engage it, how do you feel? That's another question. Is it you feel like empty, or you're always thinking about it, and so forth? Otherwise, we'd have to talk personally to answer that question. That's a guideline. Or we could say sometimes you won't know until you're a devotee. How do I engage my attachment for smoking marijuana? You don't. It's one of the regular principles. You have to stop it. So that should be pretty black and white. Right? How do I engage my attachment for the opposite sex? Well, that's easy. Get married and be responsible. How do I engage my attachment for scholarly work? All right, get a PhD in Jiva Goswami's Tattva Sandarbhas or something. go into the academic world and, represent Krishna consciousness there or something. Yeah. Or study psychology and you can help devotees or preach through psychology to people. So, you can always, it's not like, I just love to study, what's wrong with me? No. You love to study, you can study so many things and use it. Or you can study well and excel in school and end up make a lot of money and use that in service. It's always, as long as you can connect dots, you're okay. I think it's important to do what you're inspired to do. So you don't want to give that up. You want to see how to connect it. But obviously some things are just plain wrong, sinful, they cannot be engaged. Or they can be engaged, or some things are so tamasic that you try to engage them, but it just has a bad effect on you. I struggled with self-love for a long time, but the workshops have helped so much. Very grateful. Thank you. I ran through many workshops. So we're trying to finish them so that you can all of you who didn't attend the live session can take it online. And there's even more than was in the live session. Everyone that took it online could take it again. In other words, we can be attached to certain harmful strategies of engaging our nature, and we should find beneficial strategies. Yeah, that also. I knew a devotee. This is interesting. I lived with a devotee who was I believe, a PhD in physics. He was a physicist. And I lived with him in the 80s, so that means I had been a devotee like 10 years. I think he'd been a devotee like 5. But maybe I'd been a devotee. It was probably mid-80s or early 80s. So he'd been a devotee maybe 8 years, and maybe I'd been a devotee 12. And we do Sankirtan together. We lived together, we did book distribution, we studied Shastra, we learned shlokas. And, Bhaktivedanta Institute, the BI, was really being pushed by Prabhupada. Could have even been that we were together like a year or two in the late 70s after Prabhupada left. Or even when Prabhupada was here. And I kept asking him, why don't you join BI? And he said, I like that work too much. I would fall into Maya. So that was interesting. And I'm sure some of you may have had that experience. Oh, I can't do music because I like it too much. I would do it all day. My whole life would center around it. I'd lose all my relationships. I'd chant my rounds at midnight. I couldn't help myself. And now that's what he does. I don't know when he started doing it, but now he writes books on science and Krishna consciousness. So obviously, in a more mature state, he's okay, right? So that's there also. I really like to do this, but if I do it, I might go overboard, or maybe overboard means too much of it. Or it might have a bad effect on me. So maybe I shouldn't do it. And then maybe in the later stage of Krishna consciousness, you think, yeah, I'm ready to do it. So I have a godbrother named Satyaraj. I just saw him. Stephen Rosen, saw him in New York, and he presented 2 new books to me. And he writes many articles for BTG. And he said his wife is surprised because he wakes up with ideas for articles. And he's written, I don't know how many books he's written. It must be over 20. And so it would be very unhealthy for him not to write. And of course, he's writing about Krishna. So what could be better than that? So, that for him, that's perfect. It's the best thing. He's so happy doing it. So that you can say he's attached to writing. Or you could say so many great devotees are attached to writing because they want to spread Krishna consciousness and they like to write. So there are attachments which are really healthy, and there are attachments which are not healthy. I had a business once, and I thought, The problem is I'm not attached to making money. And how do you run a business if you're not attached to making money? So I thought, I need to get attached to making money, which sounds really funny for a brahmanically inclined devotee to say. I mean, if you're a grihasta, you need to make money. But I used to think like that. I think this is like a losing battle. I'm just not attached to making money. I read books on how the mindset of business people. I was like, and it would just go in one ear and out the other. Just didn't stick with me. So, we all have nature. And if someone has a nature to make money, it's not bad. So this is like reverse psychology, reverse attachment. You don't have a nature and you want to have a nature and it's not your nature and you're beating yourself up and killing yourself to get that nature and it's not yours. So we shouldn't pursue that. That's also not good. So is that okay? Is that more than okay? Is that super okay? I'm doing an interview after this class on mental health in Prabhupada's books. Wow, I'm totally unqualified to do it. Corpriya, you should do the interview. I'll have to try my best. We'll see how it goes. I think we should end class with the meditation that we should never underestimate the power, the spiritual power of Balaram, of Nityananda, of Srila Prabhupada, of the Guru. But we should never underestimate the power of their instructions, because a lot of times we're praying to them. This is a real paradox. We're praying to them for strength, but we're not following their instructions. I've often given the example that I'll say, I asked Chaitanya Dasi, I'm praying to Chaitanya Dasi. I have this table I have to move. I can't do it on my own. Can you help me? She says, sure. And she lifts up her side and I don't do anything. So it's like so much mercy has been given to us. And if we're not making an effort and we're just praying, that's Krishna's like, nah, I don't work with people like that. You've got to try. You've got to do better. Now, you might say, but isn't my praying trying? It is. And isn't it at some point where I'm tried out? I've tried everything. I can't do anything else. But that may be, but at least you tried. So if you try it out and nothing works, then you can say, Krishna, I tried everything. I just need mercy. And according to your desire for mercy and your willingness to give up your attachment, then Balaram can work through you. As I've often said, when you praying to Krishna to help you, you need to let him work with you. We're at this festival a couple of weeks ago in Canada, and there were two devotees that do massage. But sometimes massage sounds relaxing, but sometimes it's really painful, especially when you're my age and certain parts of the body don't feel so good. And this one devotee was doing Thai massage. And with Thai massage is basically a person does yoga asanas for you. So they're like, like when you do it yourself, the pain, you can hold it, but someone else is doing it. It's a little awkward because they'll push your leg up like this, they'll push it up. You'll be laying and they'll push it all the way up, maybe far beyond where you want to. And then he says, relax. And I laugh and I go, how do you relax when you're like being tortured? But so it's like, it's like, you got to work with me. If I'm going to help you with this massage, you got to, I got to be able to stretch this. So help me, work with me. So it's something like that. If you're praying to Balaram saying, okay, I'll help you, but you got to work with me. You can't just like, oh, Balaram, I can't do anything. I give up. No, it's got to be an effort, working effort. Okay, so I'm going to leave you all stranded in who knows where, hopefully in the spiritual world, not in the japa, but You can all stay for japa if you like. Chant a million rounds today. And I have to do an interview soon on mental health in Prabhupada's books. So I'm going to now search for the word depression and mental health in Prabhupada's books and see what comes up. And I can guarantee you, not a lot is going to come up. These are generally not words Prabhupada used. If you search happy, it'll come up a lot. And anyway, Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. I have to go. We'll see you all at another time.